Happy New Year everyone, sorry about the delay in getting the content out. I didn't plan to have a couple of weeks off, but ended up happening anyway. One of the most overlooked smartphone brands in the West has to be Oppo, yet they produce some of the most interesting and unique smartphones around. The Find X3 Pro was a really cool device that one-upped the OnePlus 8 Pro, but that also delivered one of the best camera experiences of the generation. I first got to check out the Find X3 Pro at Android Authority, and I found it to be really interesting, especially competing with the Galaxy S21 series. But I always found that over £1,000 was quite a big ask for something that not a lot of people knew about. But now that you can find them on eBay used for around half of that, are they worth buying? Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and this is my review of the Find X3 Pro, courtesy of Vodafone UK. Yes, you heard that intro correctly. You can get these for around £550 to £650 used on eBay. That makes them incredibly good value for money when you consider that they are still flagship smartphones. You're getting the Snapdragon 888, up to 16GB of RAM, two 50MP cameras, a 120Hz OLED, and 65W fast charging. And all that in an incredibly well packaged device as well. It has this really pretty curved rear glass, almost the opposite of Apple's recent designs with the squared off edges. That sleek aesthetic continues to the front as well, with minimal bezels, curved edges to the screen, and a small punch hole camera, all whilst maintaining IP68 water and dust resistance. I have a couple of gripes with it. As someone who prefers smaller smartphones, the huge size is a little bit off-putting, and I did share it with a couple of people and they found the size to be on the larger side as well. It wasn't really the best for getting in and out of your pocket if you wear sort of tight trousers, and actually holding the thing you really do have to stretch to get into the top corner. However, this is sort of the trend that we're seeing with a lot of smartphones. A lot of smartphones start at between 6.2 and 6.3 inch screens, so a big screen like this is kind of standard. It's just not to my preference. I also prefer the punch hole in the middle like we see on the Samsung phones. I think it looks a lot cleaner, but you know, again, that is a personal preference thing. And I do find the phone to be very slippery overall. However, what I will say is this does deviate from a lot of the smartphone sort of things, the trends that we're seeing in the end of 2021 going into 2022, because you're getting stuff like those really squared off corners, and with Samsung's new device looking to be really thick as well, it's kind of the opposite of this, which is very thin, very sleek, and very modern feeling. It's really nice to hold in the hand, but you know, it's going to be pretty easy to drop as well, unless you put a nice case on it. You put a nice case on it and suddenly that sleek design doesn't really hold up because you've got a big chunky case on it. So it's kind of hit or miss. If you're the sort of person that runs around with your £1,000 smartphone just out in the open anyway with no case on it, then you'll love this one. But I'm the sort of person to put a case on a smartphone as I don't have the money to replace it if I drop it, and well, I do drop my smartphones quite a bit. So it's one of those where, you know, you're getting really high-end hardware, but you do have to sort of weigh whether you're going to look after it in a case and sort of make it feel less premium, or if you're just going to run it naked and possibly run into some issues. And of course, the reason it is so big is because of that 6.7-inch Quad HD 120Hz LTPO OLED display. It's big, it's bright, it's colourful, and it's very responsive. Watching videos, TV, and playing games on the X3 Pro is a joy. The big screen is immersive, but what also helps is the speedy Snapdragon 888 processor and 8 to 16GB of RAM. My review unit came with 12GB of RAM, so the middle option, and I found it to be as responsive as any smartphone I've ever tested. It is rapid. Playing Genshin Impact, which is usually quite hardware intensive, was absolutely not a problem on this thing. Playing any other games, Minecraft as well, I played on this thing, was absolutely fine. I've actually been using it for a lot of Pokemon Go, and it never overheated, never crashed, or anything like that, even after extended periods like going on Pokewalks where you leave the game open and stuff like that. And the optical in-display fingerprint scanner was really, really good. Of course, I've been using Face ID on this and the previous review, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, so going back to a fingerprint scanner was nice, and I usually don't get on with fingerprint scanners, the optical kind or in-display kind, but this one is very responsive. It's not the fastest that I've tested, and I, again, still prefer the proper capacitive ones, but it did pretty well, even with my sort of, I guess, kind of tricky thumbs. It just never seemed to work. So yeah, thumbs up to Oppo for a good fingerprint scanner. ColorOS, the Oppo Android skin, is not going to be to everyone's taste. It is bubbly and friendly looking, which I like. I think that ColorOS has come a long way since its bloated, ugly, slow skin that it was a few years ago, and this version is much nicer based on Android 11. In terms of longevity, the Find X3 Pro has received Android 11 after being released with 10, and XDA reported that Oppo is offering 3 years of OS updates on its flagship smartphones, so expect the X3 Pro to get Android 13 or 14. Let's just hope the manufacturer sticks to their word, because we want longevity in smartphones, especially when you see the price of them these days. I didn't notice any kind of crashes or any kind of lag after that extended period of time with the smartphone, and comparing it to when I first checked it out, back when it first came out, this doesn't feel any slower, it doesn't feel noticeably worse. I can't really tell much of a difference between the two, which is good, and hopefully that will continue going forward. Again, this is still a flagship processor, so it's not like we're reviewing the phone a few years later. Hopefully that performance stays for as long as possible. Speaking of longevity there, the 4500 mAh battery in the Find X3 Pro is pretty good. It's not the best when you consider the size of the smartphone, however, given that it's got to drive a big, bright, colourful display, the top of the line hardware and everything like that, I found it to be pretty good. It got me through a full day. Now, if I was going out with doing a poker walk for a couple of hours, then I would expect the battery to drain a lot quicker, and I actually did find that I had to top up after a 2-hour poker walk. It would take it down by about 40%, which is quite substantial. However, who's playing Pokemon Go these days apart from this sad guy? So yeah, we'll see. Overall though, battery life isn't quite as good as, say, something from like an S21 Ultra. I didn't find it to be as good as that. However, it was better than my iPhone 12 mini, obviously. So if you're sort of doing everyday tasks, expect about a day. That's what I got. If you are a heavier user and you're watching a lot of content on your smartphone, expect to drop that to around 5 PM, where it would start to fall off. And if you're a heavy gamer, then obviously most smartphones aren't going to be for you, just purely because of the battery size. But if you're less of a heavier user, like I would typically not play Pokemon Go, I would not watch YouTube on my smartphone. And I got this thing to around 12, so midday the next day before I needed to charge it again, which is really handy. So good by 2022 standards, but not excellent battery life. But of course, this smartphone's party piece is its camera set, and it has been for the past 2 generations. The cameras are incredibly important on the Find X series, and the X3 Pro doesn't differ from that. We've actually seen in the past few months a lot of smartphones come out with really powerful camera stacks, and this is where I feel the Find X3 Pro hasn't aged nearly as well. Of course, they removed the telephoto that was in the previous generation, which I think was a stupid idea, to be honest, but I do feel that the microscope camera is really cool, but that's about it. It's not nearly as useful as the telephoto, and I feel like other smartphones of this generation, namely the S21 Ultra, has aged a lot better. Going into more detail really quickly to rattle off some specs, it's got 2 IMX766 50 megapixel sensors that capture lots of light and detail. There's also a 3 megapixel microscope camera with a ring light and a 13 megapixel 2x telephoto camera, finishing off with a 32 megapixel selfie camera. Let's talk about this microscope camera really quickly. It takes images of subjects that have to be within 3mm of the phone to be in focus. This means that you're getting some ultra close-up shots, but it also means that you have to be really steady, as the smallest movement can mess up your shot. I think the images came out pretty abstract and cool, and everyone I showed this to really enjoyed it. However, Oppo really did miss a trick by omitting the periscope camera from this thing. Every premium smartphone, apart from Apple of course, has one of these things in these days. Even if they had to raise the price by £50, I think it would have just gone a long way. However, the main and ultra-wide cameras are brilliant. They capture plenty of light, lots of detail, and thanks to the big sensors, they perform well in low light. This was heralded as the best ultra-wide camera of the year, and I have to say it's at least in the top 3 in light of the new iPhones and Pixel devices. Unfortunately, during my review time, I didn't get a chance to compare them side by side though. I really do want to check out the Pixel 6 series. Oppo's colours have a very neutral and pleasing look to me. Of course, the processing will be liked by some and not by others, it's very subjective, but I happen to think that the Find X3 Pro's processing is nicer than Apple's. There, I said it. The added contrast and more pleasing skin tones just do it more for me. The 2x telephoto camera is, in all honesty, not that bad. I was expecting way worse given its underwhelming representation on the rear camera cluster, but the images came out looking sharper than I expected, just not quite as good as the predecessors. So overall the camera stack is very good, but I wouldn't say nearly as good as something that you would find in the Pixel 6 Pro or the S21 Ultra, and that's mainly due to the versatility. The iPhone 13 Pro can be chucked in there as well. Basically, you can do more across the board with those, especially with the telephoto, than you can with this. However, if I had to take colour science just out of the equation and isolate it, I think Oppo does the best job here. Anyway, we're at that point in the video where I tell you whether you should go and buy it or not. And honestly, I think you should, as long as you don't need that telephoto. Of course, you got the 2x there, but not a periscope. This is a fantastic smartphone. You're getting ultra fast CPU, and if you're in the UK and Europe, you're actually getting a faster chipset than the S21 Ultra, because of course that's an Exynos version and not the Snapdragon version. You're getting a really premium looking and feeling phone, as long as you can put up with putting a case on it or just rocking around an expensive phone naked like that. The battery life is very good, again not excellent, but good enough, and I think that that's fine when you consider the sleek design of this thing. The screen is absolutely beautiful. The charging, of course, is 65 watt. That's something I didn't really touch on much in the review, but that is very, very fast. And I found the thing to feel pretty 2022 like. You know, considering there have been a few major smartphone releases since this thing's release, comparing them to that, pretty decent. I think that it holds up fairly well. Again, that periscope camera really should be there, to be quite honest with you, but everything else seems to hold up. The screen is very much to the standard of 2022 flagships. I say 2022 flagships, it's 2022 right, but they're 2021 flagships. You know what I mean. I would still call this a top 5 flagship smartphone, along with sort of the iPhone 13 Pro, the Pixel 6 Pro, complete mind blank there, S21 Ultra, and maybe this in 4th place, to be quite honest with you. I just really hope Huawei comes back into the game with GMS. I'm just not sure that's going to happen. Anyway, that's it for today's video, guys. I'm really sorry for the delay once again. I did want to do something nearer Christmas, but it was busy, so we ended up not creating a video and ended up with a big hole in the library. I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas or whatever, by the way, and hopefully you had a good New Year as well. Let's start this year off strong. I think I'm coming down with some sort of cold, which I'm really not looking forward to, but we'll see how it goes. Do follow my social medias, as I'm most active on Twitter. Links are all in the video description. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons for being continually supportive, and of course Vodafone for sending out this smartphone, so check out their links in the video description to find their good deals and also where you can buy the smartphone itself. Please do like, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Peace.